within AWS.
Today's session, we will be talking about one of the most important topic and widely used services within AWS, that is Virtual Private Cloud or VPC. Before we start the session, let us understand why is this service required? What is VPC and why is this required? Let's understand the basics of this. To give you an analogy, in today's time when we are facing a pandemic, all of us want to maintain a private sanitized space. This private sanitized space is especially important when we are visiting public places. Similarly, companies or enterprise, when they want to use AWS, they want to do it within their own private and sanitized space. This is provided by AWS with the service known as VPC. So basically, let me give you an understanding with a pictorial representation. This is, assume that this is AWS, the cloud services of AWS. Within this, most of us, when we create our EC2 instances, suppose we create our EC2 instances, we access this instance which we have created inside AWS in a public network. Now, enterprise do not want to utilize this public network. They don't feel safe due to certain reasons like security, privacy, or rather I would say they were wary about any possibility of loss of their proprietary data. In order to safeguard against any possible loss of their proprietary data, within AWS, a service is provided by AWS that is known as VPC. If I can show it, this is suppose a VPC which we can create within AWS. VPC. This service which has been created inside AWS, which is a VPC or Virtual Private Cloud, the connection to this is given by a private network. Therefore, if I can explain you, this EC2 instance which was previously accessed in a public network is now placed within a VPC, wherein if you want to access this EC2 instance, you need to do it through a private network. Now this private network is totally controlled by the enterprise. Okay, so VPC provides us a private space inside AWS. It not only provides us private space inside AWS, it gives us an extra layer of security for whatever we build inside the VPC. Apart from this, it also provides us various benefits like ease of controlling all the services inside VPC. Therefore, companies or enterprise who are either using AWS or who are migrating to cloud, they feel more comfortable in doing so with the VPC service. Let us try to understand VPC in more details. Before we move ahead and try to understand the critical components of a VPC, it is prudent that we understand about two important concepts, that is IP address and CIDR. Let us try to understand what a IP address is and what a CIDR is. These are important concepts to understand more about VPC. Now IP address. If you see, a typical IP address is denoted like this. These are also known as IPv4 addresses in dotted decimal notation. There is also other version of IP addresses which are known as IPv6 addresses. Right now, most of the prevalent use is in IPv4. So let us discuss with respect to that. As you may note that IP addresses are made up of 4 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each of these parts are known as octets. What are they known as? They are known as octets. So an IP address consists of 4 octets. So there are total 4 octets. Okay. Each octet consists of 8 bits. So basically, all of you may be knowing about the binary notation. In order to represent 172, we may represent it in this form. Right? Total number of bits in an IP address are 32. Okay. So these are the important points to consider about IP address. What? 1. It consists of 4 octets. Each octet contains 8 bits. Total bits required to represent the IP address are 32. Okay. Now let us understand about CIDR. The full form of CIDR is classless inter-domain routing. If I may tell you in layman language, CIDR is nothing but a methodology to represent IP address. Now why is this required? Why is a CIDR required? Basically, a CIDR is required in order to avoid any wastage of IP address. Also, looking at CIDR, we get the idea about the vastness of a network. Is it clear? Now, let us understand what is a CIDR representation of a IP address. Basically, in a CIDR, apart from the IP address, there is a notation known as this. So, after the IP address, there is a notation /n. Here, n is equal to 24. Now, what does this represent? This basically is known as the leading bits. As I explained in the previous slide, the IP address is made up of 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 equal to 32 bits. Herein, 24 represents the first 24 bits, which will be consisting of this part. Here it has been represented in the form of frozen bits. Is it clear? This number basically denotes that the first 24 bits out of 32 are frozen. They cannot be changed. So what is left to be changed is the last 8 bits. Okay. These bits can be changed. Total out of 32, 24 bits have been frozen, rest 8 are remain to be utilized. Okay, how many ways this 8 bits can be utilized? It is 2 raised to 8, that is 256. It means that if a network has been assigned this CIDR, it basically gives us an information that the total requirement of IP address in this network will be 2 raised to 8 or 256 IP addresses may be required inside this network. How will be they represented? Suppose in this network we have a instance. Okay, so what will be the address for that instance? It will be 10.0.0.1/24. Similarly, we may go up to 255. right? So these IP addresses are available to be assigned within this network for a CIDR with this representation. Let me take another example. Suppose it was 10.0.0.0/16. It means what? How many frozen bits are there? The first 16 ones. How many are available to be used? The last 16 ones. So in short, 32 minus 16 is equal to 16 bits are available. Therefore, 2 raised to 16 or 256 into 256. These many IP addresses can be assigned with this CIDR. Thus, it may be noted that with this representation, we understand that this network may almost be double than what this network is. In this network, we can change the last 2 octets or the last 16 bits. In this, we can only assign or change the last octet because the first 24 bits are locked. Okay. So with this understanding of IP address and CIDR, we will now initiate a hands-on to understand other concepts of a VPC. But before we do that, let us be prudent, or let us try to understand what is the VPC we are going to create. There is one more major important concept known as subnets. Okay, let me explain that and then start the hands-on session. Okay, so this is the VPC which we are going to create within AWS. All of you please note, this is our AWS. We are going to create a VPC within the AWS. Okay, so this is our VPC. Now this VPC consists of one large network. We may divide the large network into smaller networks. Is it clear? We can divide this large network into smaller networks. In this case, the large network has been divided into 2 smaller networks, 1 and 2. Now the question may be asked, why is this required? Okay, or where is it required? Now take the example of Facebook. Right? You have at least two sides of a Facebook. One which you can access, right? And the other part of Facebook which you cannot access, that is suppose their database. Is it clear? So suppose the front end of Facebook you would want to access, right? And the database Facebook would not want you to access it. You should not have any way to connect with this through internet. Okay, so what we can do is this large VPC or this part of this large network, we can divide it into 2 parts. One is known as public subnet, the other is known as private subnet. Now in public subnet, we can keep all our front end, that is web servers, etc., which can be contacted through the internet. So in short, this part of the network can be connected to the internet. Suppose this is our internet. How do this part of the VPC connect to the internet? All the parts which are required for making the front end or which should be connected to the internet will be placed under a region known as public subnet. Okay, so in short, without any confusion, let me explain you. VPC is a large network. Within VPC we can have sub-networks or smaller networks. Each of these smaller networks can have their own services which they are using. Suppose the front end is one network, one sub-network, and the back end wherein we are keeping our database will form our will form our other network. Okay, these smaller chunks of network are known as subnets. Okay, these are known as subnets. Now the one which can be connected to the internet or accessed through the public internet is known as public subnet, and the one which cannot be accessed through the internet is known as private subnet. Is it clear? So VPC is one large network. We can divide the large network of a VPC into different subnets, which are smaller networks within VPC, and inside those subnet we can have the liberty to choose which subnet can connect to the internet. Now how is this decided, or where do we keep the information that which subnet can connect to the internet? That is taken care by a route table. Okay, so a route table keeps the log or has all the rules inside it which mentions that okay, this subnet is my public subnet and this subnet is my private subnet. Okay, so a public subnet, if you see here, a public subnet can be connected to the internet, via a internet gateway, Okay, so if you want to access public subnet, you will have to do it via a internet gateway. So you need to define a internet gateway. And in the route table, you need to mention that this public subnet can connect to my internet gateway and hence can connect to the public network. Okay. Similarly, a private subnet is not allowed to or technically cannot connect to the internet. Okay. But many a times we may want to update our database, we may want to put a new security patch, or some of the other things may come wherein we may require certain access to the private subnet. Okay, we can do that by using something known as NAT gateway. Okay, so a NAT gateway is a service through which the private net or private subnet can connect to internet. Therefore, again I repeat, the main inside AWS we are creating our VPC. In the VPC we can divide it into smaller networks. Those networks, smaller chunks of networks within VPC are known as subnets. We require to create these subnets or smaller chunks of network because we want to control which services can connect in with which with internet or not connect with internet. That we can decide by dividing it into smaller parts. Okay, the one which can connect to the internet is known as public subnet. The one which cannot be connected to the internet is known as private subnet. But still, if you want to update your private subnet, you may want to connect it to internet, right? But we cannot do it directly through internet gateway. There we need to define a concept or an instance known as NAT gateway. Okay, so we will define what a NAT gateway is, and when we are doing the hands-on, we will understand more about it. Okay, the other important part about this network is you may see there is something known as region. Okay, those who are using AWS, they know that there are various regions for which AWS has been defined. Okay, now VPC can be defined in a single region. Okay, so you cannot have a VPC divided into two regions. Okay, say Mumbai region or North Virginia region. There are two regions of AWS. We cannot create a VPC, half of it is in North Virginia region and the other half of it is in Mumbai region. No, that is not possible. So we can have our VPC only in North Virginia, or we can have VPC only in Mumbai region, for example. One. So the rule says that a VPC can be created in only one region. Okay, but within a region, all of us know that there are various availability zones. Okay, again I repeat, you can see it here, availability zone A, and there is no zone B defined here, but let me check. No. Okay, so there may be a availability zone B also. Okay, within VPC there may be at least two zones. Every region has at least two zones. Okay, now we can divide our VPC within availability zones. So suppose the region we are using is North Virginia, and it has 6 availability zones. Then our VPC can be defined in North Virginia, and it can be spread, the network can be spread in all the 6 availability zones. That is okay. But we also need to take a note here that one subnet, the sub part of a VPC, cannot be again divided into two availability zones. So a subnet has to remain in one availability zone. It cannot be divided into two availability zones. But for example, we can have, say, in one availability zone a public subnet, and suppose this is A, and in availability zone B of the same region, North Virginia for example, we can have our private subnet. Okay, but it is not possible that our private subnet, half of the services will be in zone A and half in zone B. That is not possible. Okay, so these two are certain intricacies of using a VPC. Now let us start our hands-on.